Good. You're being stopped because I saw you doing a Mark Lanes violation back by McCarthy Pools. You're driving in the middle of both lanes and up here as well, all right? Where are you coming from today? From Boston. What's out in Boston? Health Center dinner. Yes. Perfect. How much alcohol tonight, man? I had 2 beers before the dinner. Before the what? The dinner. Okay. When,
Where you want to go? Here we go. Okay, Allison. Here we go. 5, 4, 3. Where's all the stuff? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Be ready. Okay. And here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi, Albie. How are you doing today?
I am okay. How are you doing?
I am good. I have, I think that it's time for us to get involved in the Lindsay Clancy fray. I think it's time for us to get...
We already talked about Lindsay
I know
Clancy.
we did, but I think it's time for us to... I think it's time for us to get involved because at this point, and you know, this reporter from the Seattle Times whatever has quit tonight because he was writing about boys and girls sports and they kept spiking his columns and he's like,
yeah, he like wanted to report on people, like not even his opinion.
Yeah.
Which he wanted to report about some girls who were against boys and girls sports.
Right. These are
and
girl
they said,
athletes.
no, you can't write about the girl athletes who don't want the boys in the girls sports.
So he's writing this stuff and they're spiking this stuff because these people are activists and sickos and psychos, the editors, but of course they are because whoever's left the newspapers at this point, like, good luck. And I remember it as I was leaving the Herald already, it was turning. And more of the squishes were angry and hurt and like you were yelling at me post George Floyd about stuff. And these are guys who were supposed to have been weathered. Then there was another guy, editor, who was just bullied, pushed around by the young guns, the young women who were there, working there. And he was just scared. He was caught between them and then the hedge fund know-nothings. And so these places aren't... I mean, it's... If you subscribe to one of these places, whether it's a Globe or the Herald or whatever, like really any place, chances are you're not getting... There's a better chance you're getting full avocado in your avocado oil than you're getting actual journalism happening. Because what you're getting is a lot of decisions not to cover things.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what this is. And this is not covering things because... what were we talking about today? Because you know what? It's funny. I'll tell you why I'm thinking of this.
Okay.
Because when you've got these ladies, and I know we talked about it last night, when you've got these, not even ladies, these psychos walking around for Lindsay Clancy.
Yeah, dressed all in pink, rallying outside the courthouse and stuff, holding up little heart hands.
They're little hearts for Lindsay and her mental health. They're bringing their babies there.
So weird.
Women in one place at one time who may understand all of us.
Fairly hot one right there. I would absolutely date, if we got divorced, a hot person who loved Lindsay. I mean, obviously, you're not surprised by that. But anyway.
I mean,
but
so one can feel certainly some sympathy for Lindsay Clancy, who I am of the belief, like I believe that she was hearing voices and deeply psychotic at the time when she did that. I mean, that seems to be the consensus of the medical professionals around her. And I like, okay, that's fine. So you can like feel bad for her in that sense. I feel more bad for her children, obviously. I think it's a horrifying case. I think there's no winners, no good comes out of it. I don't feel any urge to give money to Lindsay Clancy. I find that impulse very odd. I find it very odd to want to go stand outside her courthouse. It's like, it's almost too raw and painful a case to even like want to think about it, in my opinion. So I can't imagine wanting to go and like stand out there. It's so strange to me. And like this weird sort of way of celebrating her or something. And I mean, the two possible outcomes of this trial are she will be in prison for the rest of her life, or she will be in a mental institution for a very long time, probably the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Because she's going to stay in a state mental hospital if she is found to have been so psychotic that she did this. But which I think both of those are like positive outcomes, probably. Like, I mean, I can't imagine if you were her that you would want to live day to day.
No, and I think that's another part of this that's depressing.
I mean, so I don't understand really the like, we're going to go wear pink and rally and hold up hearts to her and like send her money. It's astonishing. And I also like don't really understand people conflating it with like general parenting stress or even sort of normal postpartum depression, because I really think that postpartum psychosis or like drug-induced psychosis like this is really kind of a separate issue from like, oh, moms have too much on their plate. And like now, have you seen the videos of women throwing ice into their bathtub?
Yeah.
I can't imagine the desire to want to go like film yourself having an emotional outburst and putting it on the internet. It's just bizarre to me.
And keep changing the tripod and keep changing the settings.
It's
and keep
so weird. Like, I'm going to film myself crying, holding my baby. I'm going to film myself in a rage, throwing ice in the bathtub to like show my mom rage and solidarity with Lindsay Clancy, the hashtag same Lindsay. Like, that's just bizarre. I mean, we're entering a totally psychotic world now at this point. Forget the fact that there's not even any good evidence that like getting your rage out in a safe way is even like a positive thing.
It's been a thing forever. Stuff is
I know, but like the actual evidence says that by indulging rage, you actually open up neural pathways in your brain that like make you more full of rage.
I remember Evening Magazine, which was a story. Mm-hmm. You probably don't remember. It was a local show, just about like what's going on around in Boston, the arts and sights and sounds of the but it was a nightly show, so it had a lot of stuff with them talking about these rage people who a bunch of college kids would get on one of the BU buildings and scream, and they'd have chloroseptic, and they'd spray like and get out of their college screaming. This is like 1982. 10 years after John Lennon was doing it in 1972. I'm sure there was the same version of one in 62 and then 52. You know, the moment the lobotomy crowd got excited that they were given grant money, they started to come up with all sorts of wacky stuff. But people assume, and then like 10 years ago, it comes around every 10 years or so. The room where you go in and break everything.
Well, right. But the idea that it's like good for you as a mom or good for your kids for you to be shutting yourself in the bathroom and throwing ice cubes in the bathtub and like your kids hearing you screaming and raging and throwing things, the idea that that's somehow positive cuts against like everything we know about what's positive to expose children to.
Well,
it's
yeah, but
so
also
strange.
I would say for this, it's another example of girls doing it wrong, because throwing ice in the bathtub is safe.
Well, that's like what people...
Yeah, I know, but something would break. He'd shoot a bunch of cans or something. Like there would be something, but it is, and it's absolutely pathetic. But how about this? Like, let me run this by you. Is it possible that if these women, many of whom are certainly on SSRIs, many of whom have anxiety, depression, all this stuff, does them shepherding her ascension to sainthood because she's a martyr, because everything that she's gone through, they can relate to that. A lot of the stuff, the stress, a-hole husband, all the stuff. Now she's also lost her kids, context removed. Everything she's been through.
Right.
Does that grant them clemency for sucking in the same way? I mean, not the murder, but everything else. You see, you know how serious what I'm in right now can be? She lost her 3 kids because it was so bad. So I'm allowed the fact that I'm sitting around drinking boxed wine and sleeping all day and feeling terrible for myself and whatever, the thing, doesn't it give you absolution?
Yeah, I guess so in a way. I mean, there is a desire to make not liking parenting acceptable, right? There's a sort of impulse, and you see it to like a much, much lower degree, even in this sort of like this kind of like hot mess mom content that's out there that's like about sucking as a parent and that being okay. And I understand the impulse behind it in a way, because it is comforting to know that like you're not screwing up too bad and there's other people that are like stressed and under parenting stuff. But that's why I don't actually like the conflating of that stuff with the Lindsay Clancy thing, which I think is not really like, she did have that stuff going on too. She was stressed about going back to work and she had all these other things happening. But clearly, like, it's not, I don't think that it is on a continuum of the same thing. Like, I don't think that she was, because this is the Matt Walsh position, which strangely kind of weirdly dovetails with the Lindsay Clancy supporter position, which is that postpartum depression is just narcissistic, selfish women who don't like being, quote, decentered. And all of a sudden they have to like, put somebody else first and do a bunch of work for the family, and they don't like it. And so they lash out and strangle their children to death.
Right.
Like, I don't think that that's like what happened in this case, actually. I don't think that normal parenting stress that people go through that they're sympathetic to. I think what's confusing about the Lindsay Clancy case is that stuff was also happening too. Is she was like annoyed at her husband and waffling about going back to work and stressed about breastfeeding, and like all this normal stuff is also there. That's the backdrop on which this other mental health thing is happening that is very far beyond, and you see glimpses of that in other stuff that's happening that's not normal and that is not part of the normal stuff. Texts, messages where she's begging her mom to come sleep over and sleep in her bed because the medications are impacting her and she's afraid. She's saying the medications are making me worse. This is scary. Mom, can you come over and sleep in my bed? That is not a normal thing for a new mom to be asking. It is not a normal thing to be multiple times calling suicide hotlines, to be checked into McLean Hospital, to be that's, and saying you're hearing voices, all of this stuff, like that's not like normal postpartum depression per se. I and conflating those issues, or even like, I don't even like conflating postpartum depression with like parenting stress stuff and new parent not having sleep and worrying about going back to work. And, I don't think that those are even really related issues, but I think women are seeing that as like part of the thing. And I don't think that they actually are related. I think this was like a complete psychotic break.
Well, it's gotta be. But
she probably had like an undiagnosed bipolar disorder.
Oh, definitely.
And the medications pushed her into a manic, crazy thing. I saw an interesting statistic that was saying like one of the biggest predictors for postpartum depression is actually having pre-existing mental health issues that are exacerbated by this other stuff. Yeah,
but it also just, if you look at the normal sensibilities and sensitivities of a parent and a mom, when one of our kids falls, what is my emotion?
You're annoyed.
Exactly. You're concerned.
Right.
So, like, and that's innate for you to be concerned. Mm-hmm. The fact that, this, without getting into it, the process that she went through to destroy these children means that was shut off and something else was at work.
Yeah.
Which certainly tells you that she was out of her mind. She was out of her mind. But you said you don't think it's I'm not so much worried about her psychotic break, which is awful, but some moms do it. Every few years you hear about them, and they're happy to do it in ways that are horrific to the kids. But My concern is about the general psychotic break of everybody else who's out there protesting now.
Well, right. Or, I mean, Candace Owens is one of the people who's saying she's innocent now.
I did not know that, but I'm not surprised.
Not just not guilty by reason of insanity or something. But
yeah, but she's just grifting. She's just making money.
Candace Owens, and she knows that her audience is conspiracy theory driven wine moms. So, like,
but tell me,
conservative wine moms.
Let's say these are progressive Democratic voters, generally under 50. Is that fair, do you think?
The women supporting Lindsay Clancy?
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily progressive.
Okay, then it's not. Okay, fine.
I mean, if Candace Owens is doing it.
My feeling is this. Well, Candace Owens has no ideological base anymore. She's about making money. But my worry is this.
Okay.
How can somebody see the bullet points of this story, the brief summary or the narrative of the story, the actual one, which, by the way, she cops to? How could somebody see that and then think, oh, that's the victim? I mean, so in other words, it's like how can, if you read the book or see the movie The Hobbit, the point of The Hobbit is not that Smeagol is isolated and alone and sad and driven insane. That's not the point of this. The story is a furry little guy and a bunch of crude dwarves and sexy wood elves and a mad magician go out and and save the world, Middle Earth. That's the story. But for you to look at that and say, oh, this is about Smeagol, who's alone, who's got an addiction problem, which he does, who loses all his hobbit fur and becomes this thing and wretched, and he's hurting inside. And I hurt inside too. That's what this is about. Like, that's what they're doing to me. That's what, to me, that's what this is.
But they're not, these are people who are not working on a media diet of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. These are people who are working on a media diet of true crime podcasts, soap operas, and The Summer I Turned Pretty. So they're, and like this plot would fit perfectly into a soap opera. Right? Where it turns out that the husband actually murdered the kids and convinced her she did it. He was grinding up pills and putting them in her beverages to make her crazy. And she's finding out, as we're finding out in the trial, as she's hearing him testify, she's realizing she didn't actually do it. And they're going to have like a big turnaround. Like literally, and it is the media people are consuming because, well, for one thing, like we saw a lot of it with the Karen Reed trial thing, right? And, I happened to hear you had on like last night or the night before, whatever, I don't know, a Kirk Minahan, and he was talking about the like Sandra Birchmore thing or whatever. Like people love these like turnabout cases, right? Where it's like it gets closed, case closed, story's over, nothing. That's why Serial was so popular too. Right? And then it turns out like, oh, big reveal, big plot twist. Everything's changed now. It turns out Karen Reed didn't really hit him with the car. He was murdered in the house by cops and they're all covering it up. And I don't even know if that's what happened with Karen Reed, but I think it's a lot more plausible than anything to do with the Lindsay Clancy trial. So, I mean, I literally saw somebody that is a human person that I know post on Facebook saying that this was just like Legally Blonde. Literally, because and in Legally Blonde, like this person's on trial for murder, and like then they're on the witness stand, and like Reese Witherspoon gets the witness to actually confess to the murder by accident by pressing them. So that's like the level of media and legal literacy that we're dealing with. And then you have people who are thinking like that. And like I say, I don't think it's a liberal or conservative thing. And you saw that with a lot of the Karen Reed stuff, that a lot of the sort of media alliances between different New England media people were very mixed up in terms of like left-right politics. and who was supporting who. And I think that this, like, I've seen conservative people that I know saying Patrick Clancy did it. I've seen liberal people that I know on Facebook saying Patrick Clancy did it. Largely Facebook. I assume it's out there on TikTok too. I know, like, my daughter's been seeing Lindsay Clancy content out there. A lot of which isn't true. Like, she'll usually ask me, like, oh, is it true that XYZ? Which a lot isn't. There's a lot of, like, misinformation out there. But it's not great. It's like a kind of weird mass psychosis or something. I don't know. And I don't know what the answer to it is. I happen to think that, like, the data center stuff is, like, a bad information environment too. But how do you deal with the fact that, and I'm a free speech person. I'm not trying to, like, shut down the psychotic TikTokers or whatever. But it's disappointing to me when I see people who are, like, supposedly rational people who are, like, doing normal stuff and standing in line in Market Basket, who are believing completely insane things about real life horrifying crimes that happened. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just odd that people get, like, memed into believing stuff like this.
Yeah, but Alice, so today in Mainwire TV, we talked about how Featherston got into, because the Fed is buying back bonds or something I don't understand.
Okay.
But Featherston knew all about it. So I just waited until it moved somewhere.
It ended.
I waited until it moved into an area where I could say something about it.
Okay.
And he said, national debt. And I thought, ha, I'm back in. So let's say, Alice, that there has to be some debt service happening. And so there has to be, we won't call it austerity, but austerity. So in other words, we have to cut.
Like cuts to taxpayer services, basically.
Right, exactly. Yeah. How are you ever going to convince anybody that it's anything but war on them in an attempt to kill them? Like, if this is the baseline for sanity, is everybody's a Manson girl now? Like, it's hard. You look at and mix that with the socialist stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, we won't be as good as Greece.
No,
we're just going to burn everything down. No, how dare you? They're attacking us. Trans rights are under attack.
Yeah, it's nuts, and, like, the socialism stuff is nuts, and, like, yeah, I don't know if it's just mass psychosis or what it is exactly, but the people, like, in New York City are lunatics. You have this guy, I wanted to talk about him for a couple days and we haven't got to it. This guy, Gustavo, who's the New York City DSA co-chair, and he bills himself as a union electrician, which by union electrician, it means that he has a degree in sculpture from Yale and failed the union, I don't know what exam or, like, you're supposed to take to go be a union electrician. He doesn't actually work as an electrician, and his parents own, like, some engineering company, and they've bought him a $1.5 million brownstone in Brooklyn.
And this kid looks like a total prick too, with, like, a curly mustache. He's, like, such a dandy. I mean, these people, it's amazing.
It's right up there. There's, like, the other rent freeze girl who, like, has not paid rent in years, and her dad's, like, a producer in the music business who is at the Grammys and stuff. Like, they're all friggin' wealthy Nepo baby people.
Yes.
And they believe the most insane things. Now the Mamdani administration is saying they're going to have to pay to subsidize other grocery stores that aren't the free government grocery stores to help protect them from the unfair competition from the government grocery store. So yeah, he went to Yale, got a degree in sculpture. Then he joined the IBEW as an apprentice, drops out of the apprenticeship, and he still calls himself Union Gustavo and makes $95,000 a year from the DSA itself. So congratulations, I guess, on your leader. But yeah, the DSA, like they're so unserious. And now that they have all these candidates being elevated everywhere, but like I say, like this bad information problem, and I'm not saying this to say we need to crack down on misinformation. I'm saying it to say that like we need people to like take things that they see on the internet with a grain of salt for a second. Have you been following the stuff about this like Median Strategies polling firm?
No.
So basically, there have been a few, actually, I mean, there's been a lot of really bad polls this cycle, particularly these primary polls for some of these states, including like the ones that had Francesca Hong way up. There have been some in Florida. So one of the polling firms that's been putting out these polls is called Median Strategies. And these polls have been picked up by like the campaigns, by media companies, whatever. It turns out they're just made up. A 21-year-old just made this up. He says as a social experiment to like see if fake polls would just get picked up. And they do, apparently. So he like wrote a thing that was like, sorry guys, my polls were made up. And like a few people have interviewed him. But I mean like, and I'm not sure that even really qualifies as like a social experiment per se, like, or if it's just like malicious behavior in general.
Yeah.
Like at what point is it not really a social experiment and you're just like a lying asshole?
Yeah. Well, that's like those guys, who we like, who did the fake, college,
Submitted the fake papers.
exactly. Like dog park violence or whatever it was. I forgot what it was specifically. James Lindsay, right? Was that him?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a kind of, embedded activism. But I do think that there's a chance now that all polls are simply clickbait.
Yeah, but there was also one in Florida that was like somebody else that did it that was a paid pollster by one of the campaigns. And they just like, they were, I think the phrase they used with like, it didn't align with our expectations of the race. So we just changed the result. Like,
Oh, they can do that?
Well, I mean,
that's
but there's
interesting.
it's not like there's a regulation on polling. You can just be like, I just went out and polled myself, and I think that Marco Rubio is going to be the nominee for president. You know what I mean? Like, there's not. I think there are companies that have spent a lot of time building up their reputation as a company and are coming out with polls and do serious polls where they show you what their methodology was, and people believe that they're not just lying openly. But we've reached a point where there's people putting themselves out there and calling themselves pollsters and releasing polls who are just actually literally making things up. Like not even massaging numbers and playing with the statistics or whatever, but just like openly being like, no, I'm just, making up polls now. But there is like this information problem where people get these like meme brainworms and become nuts. Like otherwise normal people believe crazy things.
You know what? Are we surprised really though? CNN portends to be handing out facts and things. They're not. They're lying a lot of the time. They omit big time. They censor themselves all the time. Same thing like when CNN sends out Daniel Dale. I'm the truth teller, by the way, you guys. I'm the fact checker. He's just omitting. Like he's just another activist. So why wouldn't polling just be an activist thing? Why not?
I mean, to a degree, it can be, but I think it changes the usefulness of what it is if you're not a person who's like trying to find out what's actually going on and you're, just trying to muddy the waters for everybody. But
could it be that the process, just because people are aging out, nobody answers phones, this, that, yada, yada. Could it be that the process is now so fully really just corrupted and unreliable that these companies, these pollsters who I've known, we've worked with a couple of them at the Herald, have just decided, you know what, I'm going to be in the entertainment business?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to lump like professional pollsters in with people who
Yeah, but they're getting it just as wrong sometimes.
I mean, sometimes, but Yeah, and I don't know, but I do think that there is like an intent factor of just like general maliciousness of when you're like, you make up fake stuff and see how far it goes.
Yeah, but
on the other hand, you could get a professorship at Cambridge University. So
yeah.
if you're just willing to make things up.
Still has legions of supporters.
They're still publishing articles about how it was actually all really true.
Yes.
Or I mean, like, it's crazy. Not only that, there's another video in our chat of like somebody else apologizing from the media. They're all doing these like hostage video apologies for what they did. And not only that, the professor who originally like raised the plagiarism accusations, who, I mean, like they say is actually a race IQ studying guy, which like, who cares? Whatever. Anyway, who got kicked out of his university in England for originally bringing up the plagiarism accusations, fled to Belgium. He's now being investigated by his university in Belgium, the president of which is a trans person in Belgium. So, I mean, like, you can't make this stuff up. It's like all a weird, it's a bizarre situation.
That I wrote, a cortado, and I would like to say something about that now. I've written it down. I don't want to get it wrong. So I want to start by offering, my really very sincerest apologies to Professor Jason Arday's family, his friends and supporters for this piece that I wrote. I also want to apologize to you, our audience, and I wish I could apologize to Jason, but that sadly is not possible. In the week before Jason Arday tragically died, I wrote a cortado. That piece contained many failures of judgment, and I want to list them in some detail here. The first is that I was led by the tone of the cortado, which is supposed to be ironic and spiky, rather than by the topic, which really required sincerity and care. And this showed, I think, a failure on my part to respect Jason Arday's humanity as a vulnerable man at the center of...
This guy needs to be flogged.
Like,
repeatedly.
It's crazy what they're all doing now.
Yeah.
Like, we can't have the whole world be held hostage by people going, like, if you say anything I don't like, I'm going to kill myself, so there.
When you write...
I'm going to hold my breath until I die, and then you'll be sorry.
When you write a well-investigated story about a guy, a serial liar, a psychotic, and a big con man, and then on Wednesday, that con man kills himself, then you have to get ready for a new story on Thursday. Freaking... It's not your problem if the psycho kills himself. We need to have a moment of
reflection.
Oh.
And, like,
you
by
pussy.
the way...
I hate this guy.
What lesson are we giving to people who are vulnerable to suicide? By the way. Like, oh, it may seem like your life is off the rails and things will never get better, but if you kill yourself, we'll make you a martyr. We'll all sing your praises. We'll take back everything bad we ever said. Like... Isn't that just validating the worst instincts of a person who's having suicidal ideation?
Well, this is your next senator from Texas, so you tell me where he is.
From Texas, we see what happened with Carmelo Anthony, and you said it was a tragedy.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I've done a lot of work in the State House on justice reform, and right now we've got a system that doesn't serve all Americans equally, and we know that Black Texans have been have not gotten the justice they deserve in many cases, and. I'm not an expert on this particular case, but I know that there were no Black members of the jury. And to me, that's the only evidence you need to really prove that this system is not working for Black Texans.
Well, there
Texas,
you go. That's James Tallarico. Here's what.
So, but the big Carmelo Anthony revelation today is they're trying to get a new trial for him.
Yeah.
Which I think could backfire very badly because. What's being discussed in the new trial thing, they got rid of the judge. They want a new judge. And they basically what they're talking about is apparently there was a, quote, gentleman's agreement between the prosecutor and the defense in the Carmelo Anthony trial to not bring up, like, character and past behavior for either of the boys. So, like, the defense said they weren't going to talk about anything from like Austin Metcalf's past and behavior, and the prosecution said that they weren't going to talk about Carmelo Anthony's behavior. And so as it transpires, what that means is that apparently when Austin Metcalf was in 6th grade, he did some racist graffiti
Oh.
But Carmelo Anthony, the morning of the stabbing, was being reported to the school by his ex-girlfriend for stalking her and saying he wanted to stab someone and lick the blood off the knife.
What's that? What's wrong with that?
So that's the evidence that they had a gentleman's agreement not to bring in.
He's our neighbor.
So I think that could backfire if they try and get a new trial based on that.
Yeah.
And bring that in. That seems like that could go the opposite way from the way that they wanted. But
well, just think, this is why this guy's the most dangerous person in the United States in media. Just think if the media had done their job and been upset when it was worth being upset, then we would have asked Fauci questions. We would have said the Carmelo Anthony thing is monstrous, what's happened, and we wouldn't have insanity. But here's Jake Tapper, very upset.
I wonder, Sir Michael, I mean, just calling transgender people trannies, like, that's obviously a slur that they don't like, and people can have their opinions on sports or whatever, but, like, there is just something about, like, treating people with dignity. I wonder, Sir Michael, I mean...
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, Jake.
yeah.
Hegseth called somebody a tranny.
Yeah.
I don't care.
He said we're having training, not training,
right.
trainees or whatever. I don't know. So, yeah, but in general,
Cyril, what is that noise? What is happening?
it's a toy.
Okay.
That's Peter. Hey, Peter.
Does he have a sledgehammer?
Yes. Everyone's behavior is terrible right now. Have you been seeing the stuff about the new social media trend of like the pranking people with meta glasses?
No.
So basically, it's a big article about this. In August, Toro Hinkle was stocking the shelves at their job at Target when they noticed two customers and asked if they needed help. The men requested a price check on an item, but even after he told them it was $20, they asked for the price again and again. After a while, I realized I'm basically being pranked, and I noticed the glasses. They were Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and the customers were filming. He eventually called the store manager over, but the pranksters antagonized her too, asking the price deliberately. Hinkle attempted to stop the recording, but they pretended to be confused by the accusation they were recording. And then they racked up 500,000 views on social media with their pranking video. There's another one, somebody who's a cashier at Michael's. A guy comes to the register and claims to be the CEO of Michael's, begins yelling at me how bad I was at my job. He starts saying he's been watching me. I haven't helped the customers. And then I noticed the glasses. He's recording me. Made me believe I was in deep trouble and losing my source of income. And then people started to recognize them in the store because they were in a viral video where they were being confronted by this person. I'm sorry, I like technology as much as the next person, but that kind of like behavior of openly recording people in public who don't want to be recorded and using them for social media views by being obnoxious to them in their face should be like Singapore caning behavior. Like,
I agree. If you do a
behavior.
thing where you like slap somebody, they should be able to blow your head off right there.
Like, I mean, and not even slap. Like, if somebody's trapped at their work, at their job, at some crap job, working in a store, just trying to get through their day and like pay their rent, and you're in there bothering them for social media views, like, and recording them when they don't want to be recorded just for kicks, especially if they don't realize they're being recorded because you're doing it on glasses. That is like some of the most obnoxious behavior that I've ever heard of. So yeah, I'm like disappointed in everybody right now. You're all letting me down. All of America. The Lindsay Clancy people, the Meta Glasses people, the people who don't want data centers, who else am I disappointed in today? I forget. What else did we talk about?
You're disappointed in Lindsay pollsters.
Oh, right. People making up polls.
What's in the chat, Albie? We have no chat messages,
stuff.
so we're gonna have to say goodbye.
Nothing in the chat.
That's not true.
Oh, it popped up. It took a minute. They said hi.
Is that all you're seeing?
The last thing I see is you saying about Paul Simon.
Yes. Okay. Charm School says Barry Nolan, Evening Magazine. Yeah, one of the all-time psychos, by the way. If he tried to get into political talk, political talk radio. The blonde was a smoke show back in '82, though. Oof, forgot her name. Joyce Cole Haywood was on that show too. Do you know who that is, Alice?
Nope.
All right, no problem. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you on Sunday.
Thanks, guys. We will talk to you soon. Appreciate that. I don't know. It seems like we front-loaded the week with Shad Chats because we had so many at the beginning of the week, and now we've run out. But appreciate all you guys who do that and join us in the chat. If you want to join us for the live chat all the time, you can do that at patreon.com/burnbarrel. Otherwise, we will see you guys next week.
C'est la vie.